Alright, chapter 4.1, this is a secondary lesson because there's a question on your homework that I did not cover that I saw and liked and added, and so I want to make sure we at least see it. Plus there are a couple different ways that you can graph um, quadratic functions, and we know one of them already, but it's vertex form. So yesterday we did some few key ideas about standard form, which is the one where it's ax squared plus bx plus c, where a is the value attached to x squared, b is the value attached to x, c is the constant, or as we know, the y-intercept. We also learned negative b over 2a is how you find the key x. You then take the key x, plug it in, and find a whole bunch of information about it. There are multiple forms of quadratic equations. I think there's 3 or 4 of them. This lesson is going to show you the power of what we call vertex form. The vertex form of a quadratic function is defined as y equals a parentheses x minus h squared plus k. In this form, your vertex is already identified as h comma k. The stretch factor of a defines the width, and the funny thing is you have seen this before. This is the one where this told you to go left or right, and this told you to go up or down. And so that you already know. Plus we know that this number here changes how you actually adjust your slope of it, and that the higher that number is, the more it slants, the more it curves. The lower that number is, the wider it's going to be, and all that stuff. So again, we've seen that, and it's just something you want to make sure you understand again. So in vertex form, these two letters represent your vertex, and that's going to be important in terms of what we do later. The reason the function is quadratic, which means that it has a highest power of x squared, is because of how it looks when we simplify it. So let's simplify this just to make sure that I'm not lying to you or saying anything that is illegal. So what we would do here first is deal with this squared, and so what we're going to do is go off to the side and do x minus 3 times x minus 3, because I wouldn't want to do all that work in here. But either way, x minus 3 times x minus 3 turns into x squared. If you remember, what you call FOIL method is just distributing two binomials, minus 3x plus 9. No, I had a pause. And then x squared minus 3x plus 9 turns into x squared minus 6x plus 9, which we'll bring back. So it turns into y equals 2 parentheses x squared minus 6x plus 9 plus 1. With that said, it turns into y equals 2x squared minus 12x plus 18 plus 1, which we then turn into, in terms of combining our terms, y equals 2x squared minus 12x plus 19. Now, the vertex, according to this, is, and again, you don't need to write this, but just for your own understanding, the vertex for this is 3, because remember we switched that number, we use the opposite of it, comma 1. That would be the vertex of it. But if we were to do it using what we know yesterday, and again, you don't need to write this, just make sure you're following, you would do negative b over 2a, which is 12 over 4, which means that my x number is 3. You would then take your calculator, and my batteries are dead, so I'm going to use the other calculator for this. But if I were to take that 3 back here to 2 times 3 squared minus 12 times 3 plus 19, hopefully I get the same number, which is 1, which is what you have there. So again, the vertex form and the standard form can be changed. Later on in the chapter we'll learn how to go from this to that. But for right now, what we know how to do is, because of our algebra background, we know how to turn vertex form into standard form. But just showing you that it's still standard form, and that it's still a quadratic function, and that it's still the same thing, that's the main thing. The power of vertex form comes into play when we are given a parabola and we know the vertex in one point. Because of that, we can use algebra to find the actual equation, which is actually pretty important, because there are times when you want to know how to, or what the actual equation is, so you can actually use the curve to your advantage. So if we were asked to write the equation of a parabola in vertex form, and they gave us a vertex and a point, we would use the general formula of vertex form. So y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. We would then have to remember that the vertex is your hk, and that this would be my x, y. Again, your vertex by definition is hk in vertex form. So again, your vertex here, your your vertex here, your x and y there. And so all you do there is plug in your numbers. So y is -1 based off of what I have. A we do not know, that's what we're actually looking for, times x is 3 minus h is 2 squared plus k is 1. You then simplify as much as you can, which means go to the inside first. 1 squared, of course, turns into 1, which pretty much means it's just a plus 1, which means when you subtract 1, you get the answer of -2 for a. Once you get the answer of -2 for a, plug a, h, and k back in, just like when you did the y equals mx plus b. Y and x need to stay the same, so you will put -2 parentheses x minus h, which is 2 squared, plus k, which is 1. That would be the formula that you're looking for. Alright, so again, that formula has a equation, or has a vertex of 2, 1, and then just to show you that the point works, again, this is what you want to be able to also do with your calculator, so you might want to plug it in for yourself on your calculator. These two are similar enough, but plug in your 3 into x. So -2 parentheses 3 minus 2 close squared plus 1 equals, and you see that you get your -1, which is what you're supposed to get for your y there. Alright. And the last example before we move on, write the equation parabola again. So again, start with your y equals a parentheses x minus h squared plus k, because that is your vertex form of a parabola. Remember that this is your hk. Remember that this is your xy, and then plug in your numbers. 36 equals a times x is -1 minus h is 3 squared plus k is 4. Simplify. 36 equals a times -4 squared plus 4. Simplify again, which would be our square. That's order of operations, of course. 36 equals a times 16 plus 4. I'm not even going to worry about it because I think our algebra is good enough. Instead, I'm going to go ahead and move the 4, and I get 32 equals a times 16. If this is a times 16, we of course would divide by 16 to get our a alone, which means that our a is 2. And again, to get your final answer, plug in a, plug in h and k. So it's y equals 2 parentheses x minus 3 squared plus 4 would be the formula you're looking for. So that should wrap up everything you need in terms of that 4.1 assignment. Anything else you need help on, make sure you get to it. Make sure again that you're doing your homework. I looked at the numbers yesterday, and I think I saw one person in the 60% and everybody else in the 0s to 4% range. This stuff is going to start getting tough. I am going to make adjustments based off of what you're doing in class, and if I notice that no one's doing homework, then I will start assigning real homework and stuff that if you don't bring it back, your grade's going to drop. So please don't make me force you to start doing what you're supposed to be doing as a class, because eventually you're going to start falling behind, and then there's going to be all kinds of trouble. So while you're in class, make sure you're working on your homework at least. Make sure you're asking your questions, and again, don't forget you do have to still talk to me or come and see me 2 days a week. Just make sure you remind me to mark it down whenever you do that. Other than that, go on to your Math XL and let's get some practice on the 4.1, or continue the practice on your homework. Tomorrow we move on to 4.2. Good luck.